foundation of any endurance training. The aerobic system actually provides 98% of the fuel for a marathon, 99% for Ironman. The 50-50 break point between aerobic and anaerobic is round about the 400-meter sprint, where there's equal contribution from the aerobic and anaerobic system. So if we're talking, a 2-hour race in a really fast Olympic distance, we're still talking a higher contribution, over 80% from the aerobic system than from the anaerobic system. So we do, it's foundational stuff. We need to train, and it takes a long period of time to develop that aerobic system if it isn't developed from the outset, from our life as a child, etc. It takes a long time to develop, but it also takes a reasonable time to lose. So once you've got it, you can have periods of sport, periods where it doesn't, you don't lose a heck of a lot. You lose it slowly. So how do we train for aerobic sport? 80 to 85% of our volume should be at aerobic intensity for it to develop. The rest of it, the 10-15% that remains, can be at the VO2 max, high intensity, or the zone 4 threshold type training to build durability, force, speed, etc. But for the aerobic system, we've got to operate at below our aerobic intensity, which is typically can be calculated or estimated as 150 minus your age. 180 minus your age, apologies. So basically a 50-year-old would operate at 130 would be his math threshold. And 80 to 85% of his volume should be below that intensity. Why at that intensity? Why is it such a low heart rate? Because our cardiovascular system only develops at low intensity. We have to be below that threshold for it to actually improve. What we're improving is the heart health, the amount of blood it actually pumps at any particular time in terms of the volume, but also our capillaries and our ability to actually process blood through our veins and remove them back into our system, so we capillarize at that low intensity. What actually happens is when we actually are operating aerobically, as we increase our heart rate, within our aerobic boundaries, our heart is actually increasing volume as we go up through the intensity range. So let's say we start at 60, as we actually get up towards our aerobic threshold, the heart capacity is expanding to accommodate the amount of blood that needs to flow. Once we reach that aerobic threshold, basically your heart's reached its maximum size it can expand to, and the only way it can pump more blood through your system is to beating faster and a lot faster. That means the body picks up from a hormone and neurology perspective that you must be in danger, otherwise you wouldn't be working this hard. Starts injecting cortisol into your system, adrenaline, and you start going into a fight or flight state. That means you're out of aerobic system, and now you're actually moving into the anaerobic system, and the whole fuel supply changes to prefer carbohydrates. You've got cortisol, adrenaline in your system, and you're really operating in a higher stress state. Higher stress state means you're probably in an unsustainable. It's meant for short term. It's meant to prepare you to run from a lion, from a attacking tribe or something like that, not to keep going for a couple of hours. So how do we actually train? So we keep our heart rate below zone 1, zone 2, 180 minus your age, or if you're not using heart rate monitors, etc., in a non-urgent state, that you just feel you're in flow, you relax while you're running, while you're exercising, could be swimming, could be cycling, but you relax, you're not in an urgent state, there's no urgency in what you're doing, you're not really thinking about outcomes at all, you're just thinking, you're just riding, running, and relaxed and enjoying it. That's where we actually develop the aerobic system. The reason why the Kenyans are so good at what they do, yes, they train in a higher altitude, etc., but they grow up doing aerobic training. That's how they get to school, walking long distances to get to school. They do a lot of running as they're growing up in the rural environments. Going to get water, farming, hunting, whatever they do. They are active from kids doing aerobic training basically up to 8 hours a day. Us urban people, we don't do that. We might go through a sports field for an hour and that's it, we're done as kids. And that's where they've got the massive advantage. So that's what we want to start doing, is getting a whole lot of volume at the aerobic level. Non-urgent state, develop that aerobic system so it can support us for long efforts. So where does the focus need to be? Right, one, it needs to be on non-urgent. We can actually do as much volume as we like in the aerobic system. So there's a lot of discussion. You should only be training for 15, 20 hours a day. After that it gets excessive. When you're working below that aerobic boundary, that doesn't matter. So if you want to add volume to get better over a period of time, do more aerobic training. You can literally do as much as you like, provided you're not exhausting yourself. So how should you feel when you go on aerobic training? Right, when you go in, you should probably go in fasted. If it's in the morning, you don't really want to be throwing carbohydrates in the system and heightening the fight or flight system. If it's in the afternoon, no need to carbo load or throw in carbs beforehand. And typically, an aerobic session, you shouldn't have a need to take on fuels unless it's a really, really long run or ride. You're going to get the most advantage and most benefits from staying within your fueling limits. So if you're aerobically fit, that boundary could be 4 hours. If you're not aerobically fit, and you typically be taking carbs all your life, every event, every training session, you might find that boundary at an hour and a half. And what you want to try and do is, through our non-Asian sport and a little bit of faster training, try extend that window so you can stay in the aerobic state, low stress, no carbohydrates for longer. So yes, that window can extend. For me, I've been fat adapted for some time, and typically my training window is as long as I can go without fuel. All right. So typically for a run, it's around about 2.5 to 3 hours. On the bike, it's up to 4 hours. As soon as I feel I need fuel, carbohydrates to last the distance, I feel I've extended. I'm going past where there's aerobic benefits in what I'm doing. But while you're not fat adapted, while you're still getting aerobically fit, that window might be shorter. You might want to actually still go a little bit longer with a little bit of fuel at the end, carbohydrate fuel at the end. So, what are the other pieces I need to? Right. So what are the exceptions? So if we're training aerobically, we're trying to get as much volume at aerobic, and we've got the other pieces, you might feel you don't have enough time to fit in all this aerobic training required to actually get you fitter. Right. Typically what we do there is we polarize training. So we get as much time as we can using on the aerobic system, and then we might just do high intensity, short intervals of high intensity to contra the best use of the time that we're not in aerobic to actually build force. And the two come together on race day to actually give us a reasonable race. If you really don't have time to do extended aerobic, probably don't enter and go in for the long events like Ironman, marathons, the things that go over 4 hours. It's going to be really difficult to achieve with a good founded aerobic base, with a really solid aerobic base. If you feel that getting out there and doing 80% volume, you need to scale it down to keep the 80%. Right? So if you can't do 15 hours at 80 and 80% is aerobic, you probably shouldn't be entering the longer events. Keep it to the shorter ones, where you can actually train for 7 hours for something like the Olympic and still have the 80% of the 5 hours of training. That's the order of things. Otherwise, you're going to enter the Ironman, only do or not do the aerobic training, focus on the threshold stuff and the intervals. You're going to get to the run, and you're going to be absolutely finished and walking most of that, and you're going to have a disappointing result. You need to do 13 hours minimum to do an Ironman, and 80% does need to be aerobic, or things are just going to go wrong. It's going to be a very unpleasant experience. That's really it. It's all an aerobic system. When we turn up for an aerobic system, what is the mindset? The mindset is about calmness. It's about non-urgency. We should not be thinking about outcomes. We should not be thinking about race day where we're pushing for the end, because that's going to harden the anaerobic system, the fight or flight. We should be calm. We should be able to execution. We should complete any aerobic session feeling we could have gone further. If you feel you couldn't have gone further, and you had to limit in terms of distance or hours, you would have found in the last third of that session you were in actually a high stress state, because you're nearing the end of your muscular capacity and durability, which means you weren't really in your aerobic state, because stress pulls you out of that aerobic state, introduces cortisol into your system and steps you out of it. So you want to see that benefits of the aerobic benefits of that ride. Aerobic training is a hard pill for the go hard, go home, no guts, no glory type athlete. They feel they're not getting the finish. It seems counterproductive. Yet, the people who get the results, this is exactly what they're doing. Even the All Blacks are sprint on the rugby field all the time. They do their aerobic foundation training at 80%. They do their fat adaptation training, and they're very good at that. Through their off season, they're not doing this punchy stuff, sprints, etc. They are building that aerobic base to see them through the season. That's why they last so long on the rugby field and defeat everybody at the end. So it applies to football, all the sports. The people who really succeed in endurance sports are probably the people who have grown up exercising, so they've got a massive aerobic foundation. To build it up, people who come into a sport later in life and want to succeed, want to do a triathlon, and they've done nothing for most of their life, they're going to take 2-3 years to build up a reasonable aerobic foundation before they can really start being competitive. Speed work isn't going to do it, isn't going to get them there for the longer distance events. Speed work, strength, etc. Yes, it's essential to go fast, but to go long, you have to have that aerobic base. And when I say long, it's even the park run at 5 kilometers. It's going to make a difference. That's it from the aerobic side. Next, we'll probably do the high intensity stuff, which is essential for force, for speed, and for holding out at the back end of the races. But I hope you enjoyed this session, and tune in to the next one for more.